Hello again, fight fans. Welcome to episode 287 of the Neutral Corner Boxing Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Montero for Ring Magazine. As you can see, the new issue is out. Look at that. Fantasy fight on the cover, Duran versus Whitaker. Dream matchup. Awesome, awesome stuff. And ringtv.com and the Ring Digital YouTube channel where you are watching me live. As always, guys, I remind you, please make sure that you're subscribed and you click that little notification bell so you never miss a live version of the Neutral Corner Boxing Pod. But if you do miss the video, it's all good. The audio pod goes out on podcast platforms around the world. Just look for Montero on Boxing and the Neutral Corner, and you will find me. All right, guys, TNC 287 for the week of October 30th. Halloween is right around the corner, trick and or treat. And we got a few of you guys on the chat. Make sure that you're clicking that thumbs up button. All right. We're going to jump right to our special guest joining us from the other side of the pond, Mr. Luke G. Williams, who just released a book about the president, Ike Ibeabuchi, president of Pandemonium, the mad world of Ike Ibeabuchi. And for some of you younger guys, Ike may have been before your time. Go on the YouTube, look up Ike Ibeabuchi's fights with Chris Bird, David Tua. There's a few of them. You'll thank me later. All right. But for those of you who don't know, Ike Ibeabuchi, heavyweight contender, never got a title. But I think in this era with, the 5,000 titles per weight class, he definitely would have had one. Had the physical ability. He was kind of almost Andrew Galata-esque. And there was a couple heavyweights in that era that were like that really had a lot of physical ability, but just mentally a little out there, to put it nicely. So Ike was 20-0, 15 knockouts. Today, he is 48 years old, originally from Nigeria. He's, as far as I know, we're going to find out from Luke here in a second because he's got some inside scoop. I think he's in the United States, but I don't know because I think his green card and all that got messed up. He was in prison from 1999 to 2015 in Nevada, got released in 2015, rearrested in 2016, and I believe he was released again last September. Whereabouts currently unknown, but you're going to get an exclusive here because Mr. Luke G. Williams, he's got the inside scoop. Before we bring him on, let's run over here to the super chat from Mr. Feeling Dangerous. Thank you so much. He says, Herring versus Stevenson should have took place on Friday, so it didn't have to be so late. Love the show as always, Mike. Hey, we'll be talking about that, man. Of course, you guys know I covered that fight from ringside for ringtv.com. You probably saw my recap there and all my fight week stuff on the site. But I didn't get home. I live in Atlanta, okay? I didn't get home till 2 a.m. Actually, it was almost like 2:30. That is too damn late. And as I say that, Luke is on hold, and it's like midnight over there. So let me bring him on. We'll talk to him about this awesome book. All right, here we go. Luke, what's up? How you doing, man?
Yes, Mike. Great to be on the show, man. I've listened to this show for so many years, so to be on and finally to properly chat to you rather than just message you or whatever is amazing.
Yeah. Thank you. And, I resisted the urge because every time I hear the name Luke, I want to say I am your father. I'm sure you've heard that about 5,000 times. I just realized I did a horrible introduction. Luke, you used to write for Boxing Monthly magazine. That's how we met. And now you're writing for Boxing Social. Could you just talk a little bit about your background in boxing before we get into the book?
Yeah, so I've been in sports writing actually for quite a while, going back to like the late 90s, and boxing was always like my first love. But initially I didn't work in boxing. I worked in soccer, as you guys would call it. Worked for a big organization called UEFA over in the UK and Europe. Okay. And then I got a bit disillusioned with soccer. So I moved off into becoming a teacher. And then on the side, I was trying to get my boxing writing gig going on. Which I eventually did. I did my first book, Richmond Unchained, a few years back. And then through writing that, I got in touch with the Boxing Monthly guys, Mark Butcher, who I know you know.
Yep.
And it just sort of snowballed from there, really. So yeah, it's always been like a side hustle, like it is for a lot of guys. So yeah, that's the story, really. But I got so much love for all the Boxing Monthly people. Obviously, it was big blow when the magazine went under,
right?
Because I'd edited the website for a few years.
That's right.
And it was a great crew of people. So it's great to still be in touch and to see how well certain people like yourselves are still doing. Now you're linked up with Ring.
Yes, sir. It was tough. That was right in the middle of COVID. The lockdowns. And I'm sure you remember the video I posted on my YouTube channel, and I started getting emotional thinking about it, man, because you mentioned Mark Butcher. He was one of the first guys that really gave me a break. And I've talked to so many people that say the exact same thing about him, he even gave my then girlfriend, now wife, a break doing photography because some of her photos were published in Boxing Monthly magazine. She's gone on to do work for Ring and other platforms. So it really is on the bucket list for us to get over there to the UK and cover a fight so that we can have a meetup with the whole Boxing Monthly crew. That would be so much fun.
Yeah, that would be awesome, man. And just hopefully post-pandemic, hopefully we now are post-pandemic. And yeah, just echo what you say about Mark. He's a real gentleman, and there's no ego about Mark. He's not like one of those big shots who shouts in that. He's not like a self-promoter,
right?
But just a really genuine guy. And he gave me so much help, you so much help, and so many other guys, that he's given like a leg up to and a helping hand. Yeah, absolutely great guy. And we would love to have you over here. Hey man, now I've moved house. We've got a spare room here. So you and the missus are always welcome, man.
Sounds good to me, brother. Yeah, it's definitely one of those things we want to do. We can't wait. We were thinking about covering, I can't remember which Joshua fight it was that was planned, and then the pandemic hit, and it just it's right now it's almost impossible with everything that's going. I mean, it's better now than it was last year, but we want to wait till we can fully enjoy the experience and go see everything, all the sites, turn it into a trip, and maybe we stay over there for like 2-3 weeks or something. That's the plan. So
can't wait, man. Can't wait.
Me too. Let's talk about this book. First of all, why Ibeabuchi? Why Ike?
Oh, so man, I mean, I grew up, the 80s and 90s, and probably like the height of my boxing obsession as like a teenager was around that mid 90s period.
Great era.
Yeah, great era. A lot of great fighters. And I grew up reading Boxing Monthly. And I was following David Tua. He was like the new Tyson, the new Dempsey. He was destroying everybody. He was, I think, on the cover of Boxing Monthly. And, I love the heavyweight division. I had this old history book, like taking you back, the whole history. And I love that historical aspect of boxing, still do. And then I just read that Tua had lost. And I didn't even know he was fighting against this Nigerian heavyweight. I hadn't heard of Ibeabuchi at all. And I remember reading the report, not only had he lost, but this fight had broken the record for number of punches thrown,
right.
More than the Thriller in Manila. And I just thought, I've got to watch this fight. I don't think it was on UK TV.
Uh-oh. Luke. Oh.
Videos.
Oh, okay. You froze up for a second.
Am I back? Yeah?
Yeah, you're back now. Cool. Okay.
Yeah, they'd have these adverts where you could like order pirate videos, from these dudes who recorded them off TV, and then they would make copies, and you could order what fights you wanted from like the US. So a friend of mine who was, we were also really into boxing, we ordered Ibeabuchi Tua because we thought we got to see this fight. And I was just blown away by his performance, by the fight. And ever since then, I followed him and all the ups and downs, that ensued, because I thought he was going to be the next guy, the next potentially great heavyweight.
A lot of people did. I mean, with what he did with Tua, and then the way he destroyed Chris Bird, that knockout, it was a scary, scary knockout. And he had a few of those. He was seen as the next guy, and then it just all fell apart. It felt like it was overnight, but there were actually a few incidents that led up to him being arrested, right? Can you talk a little bit about that? Just give a little background.
Yeah, so, I mean, in fact, the first big incident actually happens not long after the Tua fight.
Right.
A few weeks after that, Ike had been in some sort of relationship that had fallen apart, a girlfriend or whatever. And one day he kidnapped his estranged girlfriend's son. He drove off down the highway at like top speed and drove straight into a concrete pillar with the kid in the front of the car.
It wasn't the kid hurt, and the kid could, I think it was permanent injuries, correct?
Yeah, from what they said at the time. I mean, I tried to track down, I think I found the kid, and I sent letters saying, look, I'm writing this book. I want to give you the chance if you want to say what happened to you, or you want to talk about it. Obviously, if you don't want to talk about it, that's fine. I never heard back. So I don't know for sure how permanent the damage was. But at the time, they were saying he would never walk properly again, or he would always have, physical injuries. Ike was pretty much unhurt. So yeah, that was the first incident, and that was a big red flag there. But essentially, what happened was the legal team, there was shenanigans, there was a settlement, and within a year or so, he's free and he's fighting again. He's on the comeback trail. But the root cause of why he did that, was he depressed? Was he manic depressive? Was he schizophrenic? So many different theories. That was never really dealt with. The promoters, Cedric Kushner and Wolof, they had this commodity. They wanted to get him back in the ring, and that's what happened. And really, I think that's the root of the problem. That Ike, I think, needed help. Whether he was willing to ask for that help is doubtful. But he really needed help and shouldn't have been in a boxing ring, really. And that never happened. He was pushed back in, and then after the Bird fight, there was an incident in Las Vegas, Mirage Hotel, a sexual assault. And after that, he went to prison, and that was his last fight. He stayed there for a very long time. He kept getting refused parole, and so on and so forth. So those are the two big incidents. And strangely enough, both of them came after like big victories, big highs in his life were followed by these almost like manic episodes.
It's almost a bipolar type of thing, right? Where you're right at the top and then boom.
Yeah.
And then when he went to jail, he did a special plea. I can't think of the Elford or some
plea, yeah.
Could you explain that a little bit? It's essentially where you kind of admit you did it, but kind of not.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly.
It's sort of not admitting you did it, but admitting that there is evidence that would probably convict you.
Okay.
I'm not a lawyer, but it's a bit of a strange thing. Although he then tried to withdraw that later on, claiming that he wasn't of sound mind when he made that plea. He went through numerous legal teams at different times, fired various lawyers and so on and so forth. But in the end, the case had been rumbling on, and the judge just said, "Look, no, you can't withdraw it. You signed it." And I think at the time he signed it, he was actually on medication, which the expert said meant he would have understood better than he normally did what he was doing. So he tried to then back out of that Alford plea, but they wouldn't take it by then. They just wanted to conclude the case, I think.
Yeah, because during the trial, wasn't he seen medically or mentally unfit at some point and then put in a home, or there was something like a halfway house or something?
He went to a psychiatric facility. He was receiving medication. There was lots of debate between different doctors. At various times, it was like maybe 3 doctors were saying he wasn't fit. 2 were saying he was fit to stand trial. So there was a lot of back and forth there, going on, which is why it took, quite a long time to come to, I think it was sort of 2 years really in the legal system before the case was actually really concluded around 2001, I think.
And then he gets out in 2015, gets rearrested. What happened there?
Yeah, so he was released, I think, just before Christmas 2015. And this is the time I was sort of following this. I was writing for Boxing Monthly. I've always had this interest in Ibeabuchi. And so I'd always been sort of checking up, where is he? What's going on? There were rumors from time to time he was going to get out.
There was always going to be a comeback.
And all that,
times, right?
Yeah. And then he was released, and I managed to track him down, and I interviewed him by telephone in February 2016. And it was all systems go, I think. So then he would have been about 45, I think, from memory. Yeah. And he was talking about doing what George Foreman had done. He was linking up with Michael Cons, who, was in with Manny Pacquiao. They were talking about him going to be on the Manny Pacquiao undercard. They were lining up Andy Ruiz, they were talking about at some point. And then essentially, he got rearrested about 50 days after I spoke to him. And he had all these, when he had all these grand ambitions and big hopes. And he spoke to me about how, he didn't feel he was free yet. He would only feel he was free when he was boxing again. And it was his destiny and all of these things. But essentially, he violated the terms of his parole. I think it's detailed in the book, but I think there was some sort of, as a registered sex offender, he was meant to attend some sort of treatment or meeting, and he didn't do that. And so he got rearrested. Yeah, and was back inside again.
Wow. Knowing everything that you know about these cases, because you've looked into it, do you think that the sentence, the first and the second, do you think they were excessive given what happened? Do you think they were just?
The first sentence, I think, was too lenient,
The first was too lenient.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because he wasn't inside for very long, was he? But having said that, there was, as I understand, an out of court.
Oh, you're talking about when he crashed into the pillar. Oh, of course. Yeah. I told, because that was just a few months, right? I don't think it was a year. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, so yeah, so I mean, man, it's, he was in jail for a long time.
It was like 16 years.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know. I wasn't in the parole hearings why he kept being refused parole. But my presumption is, based on what I know about Ike and the sort of the people around him, family-wise, in terms of almost like a refusal to admit that he's unwell, that I suspect he wasn't paroled because maybe there was no remorse shown or no willingness to engage with psychiatric treatment. That's my suspicion.
Okay,
so
that makes sense.
That's not fact. So, second time around, I feel he was in prison probably too long for that crime. People are released much quicker for similar crimes.
Well, there's active boxers. Sorry to interrupt. There's active boxers right now that literally did something similar and received no jail time, and they recently fought. And there's a few people or have fights coming up. So.
Maybe no names, but I know.
We won't name names, but some of the guys I'm talking about. And so he does 16 years, but I didn't think about that angle where perhaps they're checking him medically and he's going to these parole hearings and there's these experts saying this guy's still a danger and he won't even get treatment.
And I think it's like the refusal. So there was one time he was refused parole. He did an interview from prison with a guy called Tim Graham, who still works, I think, as a journalist over in the States. And in that interview, although Ike later claimed he was misquoted, but Tim's pretty adamant he wasn't. He essentially said, "Look, if I'd been back in Nigeria, I wouldn't have been in prison for this crime because this woman was a prostitute. She was a hooker. I could do what I want with her, sort of thing." But that's if he's taken that sort of attitude into parole hearings.
It's not going to fly, given his prior history with that lenient sentence you were talking about the first time around. Because I couldn't believe that you kidnap a child, plow into a pillar, nearly kill the kid. Possibly could have, and it wasn't even a year.
The conclusion was of I think of the court. They said at the time that he wasn't deliberately trying to kill the kid; he was trying to kill himself.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, weren't they saying it was an attempted suicide? But he obviously endangered the kid. Okay. Man, I totally forgot it. But this is bringing back memories because. It was so crazy to see a guy because I saw that Tua fight live on TV. Wow. And that was the good old days, man. They had fights like that all the time. But that one was special. And you're just thinking, this guy's going to be the next one. Can't wait for him to fight Lennox Lewis. You start thinking about those kind of matchups, and then this insanity happens. It was just bizarre, a lot of it. It wasn't just a simple assault and battery or whatever, like we get, unfortunately, all the time in sports. But kidnapping a kid and crashing a car. Anyway, so he gets rearrested 2016, gets out in 2020.
Yeah.
What's been going on since then?
Okay, so he's released in September 2020, but because of his status, he's not a US national.
Right.
He's released from prison, but he's actually put into ICE, so immigration custody, which is also what happened last time when he was released in 2015. And as I understand it, back in 2015, they were trying to get him deported back to Nigeria. For whatever reason, Nigeria wouldn't take him. So in the end, I don't know quite how this happened legally, but I think in the end, they're just like, okay, we'll just release him in America then, they won't take him. There you go, Arizona.
That's right. It was Arizona. Yeah, that's our system. There's a few.
So he went back to ICE September 2020, and then I was sort of checking because ICE have like a database. You can check if someone's in ICE custody. So I'd check every couple of weeks. So I'm trying to finish the book. How's it going to end? Where is he? Is he out again? Etc. Etc. And then I think I'd finished the book, and I'd forgotten to check for a bit. So I think it was like June or sometime. I'm like, oh shit, better check. Where's Ike? Nothing. Not in ICE anymore. Check Arizona, not there anymore. Try and email, try and call. They don't tell you anything. So he sort of disappears sometime, in the summer of this year.
Summer of this year, in 2021.
Here's your exclusive, man.
All right, here we go.
As I understand it, just over the weekend, from some online sources and research, my understanding is he's back in Nigeria. So he was deported, is my understanding now.
Okay.
And that he was, whether he still is, that he was at one point sort of in immigration processing in Nigeria. but as I understand it, he's now back in Nigeria. So those sort of comeback plans, certainly in terms of the US boxing scene, would appear to be over. But my presumption is he'll try to fight in Nigeria if he can.
Yeah, I would assume that. Do you know at all when he was deported? Was it last year or was it this year?
Yeah, it was so sometime this year, but date wise, I've not been able to nail it down. So yeah.
So it was floating around somewhere for a while.
Yeah, I think what happened is during COVID, ICE got sort of locked down, and no one was sort of coming in or coming out or whatever. And then I'm guessing sometime in the summer was when he was finally deported. Why Nigeria changed their view on taking him back, I don't know. Some sort of behind the scenes stuff going on there, but I don't know. But yeah, my understanding is, back in Nigeria and presumably at some point going to be free and probably going to try and come back or at least have another fight.
Yeah, I would think there's something probably coming in Nigeria. You last spoke to him, was it 2016?
Yeah.
That you physically last spoke with him.
Yeah, by phone and a few emails before he got and then he stopped answering my emails, and then that's when I found out he'd been rearrested. Yeah.
When you talked to him, you could hear his voice, you could hear inflections in his speech and everything. Did he seem with it, or did he seem a little touchy?
You know what? Remarkably with it, I have to say.
Yeah, okay.
Like his recall, he didn't want to talk about the criminal stuff.
Right.
So I was sort of trying to ease in. I thought, well, I'll speak to him a few times about the fighting. I'll try and keep the communication going. At this point, I wasn't necessarily even wanting to do a book. I didn't really know, but I thought he's an interesting figure. We'll see what we can get. So I hadn't got around to like the crime-based stuff yet, which from the little bits where I'd mentioned things, I could see he was reluctant to go there. So I was focusing on the boxing and hoping to, deepen the contact or whatever. But yeah, remarkably together, his recall of the fights was very, very clear. Quite a softly spoken guy. Didn't seem agitated in any way when we were speaking. Quite a formal guy. So the one time I sort of got in trouble with him was when I referred to him as Ike, and he sort of interrupted me and said, no, Mr. Williams, I would please appreciate if you referred to me as Mr. Ibeabuchi.
Wow. Well, at least he didn't say you have to call him the president.
He didn't ask me
to do that in HBO meetings. And I'm sure you wrote in the book where he slammed a knife into a table at I think it was just an HBO executive meeting or something like that.
Lou DiBella tells that story. Yeah,
that's right, Lou DiBella.
Yeah. Did you talk
to him for this fight or for this book? Did you talk to Lou?
Yeah, I did speak to Lou. Yeah, okay. He was very helpful. So I spoke to as many people as I could. I think in all, I spoke to about 30 people, either promoters, managers, publicists, other fighters. So I spoke to Chris Bird. I tried to get David Tour. I couldn't get David Tour, unfortunately. I tried very hard. But Kevin Barry, who was part of the Tour team, Larry Merchant, Jim Lampley, they were great. Awesome. And still, two guys who've seen so many fights, but still talk about that David Tour Ibeabuchi fight in like awed tones. I mean, I think it was Lampley who said, the heavyweight fights he covered for HBO, it was like Bo Holyfield and Tour Ibeabuchi were like the two for him, the two best ones. So yeah, I tried to speak to as many people as possible that were there at the time, and obviously then you tease out these strange stories like the one before the Chris Bird fight, where I mean that performance that he puts in against Bird, I thought was extraordinary. Mm-hmm. And this is the thing. I mean, you made the Galota comparison, which I think is a good one. But I think the difference with Ike is, although there was chaos outside the ring, inside the ring, he was a very composed,
that's a good point,
disciplined fighter.
He never broke down in the ring.
Yeah, and you see that, and he didn't foul. He didn't seem to lose his temper. His temperament was great in the ring. Outside was chaos, and the Bird fight's an example of that. The camp was absolute chaos. He nearly didn't. He refused to get on a plane to the fight. I think he only sparred once in the build up to that fight, and that ended in a out of the ring where he attacked Ezra Sellers because he thought Ezra Sellers had tried to cut him with a ring, and it was just chaos. And before the fight, they're about to walk out, and Ike's like, "No, I'm not going unless you get me a Snickers bar." So this guy has to scurry off.
They are pretty good. They are
good. So this guy and his team has to scurry off, buy him a Snickers. Ike eats it, and then he goes in the ring and he does that. That performance. So, yeah.
Was that the fight that he refused to weigh in? I know there was a fight where he didn't want to weigh in, and they had to fight him to get to the scale.
Yeah, that was
It was
so
a
yeah,
different fight,
between
huh?
Tua and Bird, he had two sort of comeback fights. It was one of those ones. I forget which guy, but yeah, he wouldn't come downstairs, and they had to ring him up
Right.
and say, "Oh, we need the president downstairs, otherwise, like the event can't run. We have to
They
have
had
the
to call him the
president."
president. That's
Yeah,
right. That's right.
yeah,
Yeah, they had to call him the president because I remember Lou talked about that.
yeah.
Um,
And only then would he come down when they said they needed the president. So,
you
yeah,
can't write this shit.
you
Well,
can,
actually, you can.
you
You
can,
can write it.
you can.
So, how can people in here in stateside get the book?
Yeah, so obviously, if you want to line the pockets of Jeff Bezos, you can go on Amazon. But the better way to get the book is Hamilcar, who are absolutely amazing boxing publishers. So there's 7 books in this true crime
Right.
series.
They have a whole series that are really fun.
Yeah, and they've got all sorts of other, and they basically focus on boxing, and now they're also moving into like hip hop and music as well. But they're a brilliant independent publisher. So if you want to support them and ensure that we get more books, like this and like their other books, you should go on their website. That's the best place to buy it, to support the publisher. And also,
I'll share their links and stuff.
yeah, and Rival Boxing are a partner of Hamilcar, and if you're buying your Rival gloves, you can also buy your Hamilcar books from the Rival Boxing websites as well. So
very cool. And for you guys listening later on the audio pod, Hamilcar is spelled Hamilcar. I will post links. I'll tweet everything out. If you go to Luke's Twitter profile, their Twitter is right there in your description, right? Hamilcar's Twitter is right there in Luke's description. How can people follow you on Twitter?
So I'm Boxiana Journal, which is BOX. I won't bother to explain, but BOXIANA Journal. No hash, no underscores or anything like that. I came in my love of boxing history. Boxiana, the original Pierce Egan bare knuckle boxing journal from the first ever boxing journalism.
All right,
was Boxiana in the UK, but Boxiana was taken, so I had to add something else to it. So
Boxiana Journal. All right, that works. All right, man. Thank you so much for telling us a little bit about Ike Ibeabuchi, and I can't wait to get started with your book. I'm finishing up one right now, and yours is next on the list, sir. So I'll be checking it out.
One last thing, if you want to read an extract from the book, that copy of Ring magazine, which you're holding up there, has got an extract, I believe.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I saw that the other day. Let me find that. 62, because you have an article on page 62. Here we go. Let me see if I can get this on the camera here.
There we go. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So for you guys listening on the audio pod, Luke's got an article in this month's issue of Ring. And of course, he's got to mention the book. There's an excerpt there. Good stuff.
Cool,
Good stuff, brother. All right. I will, it's what, 12:30 over there?
Actually, it's not. It's only 10:30, man. But I'm a lightweight. I've got 2 young kids.
Oh, okay. That's right. That's right. You guys are 5 hours ahead. Sometimes I'm on West Coast time and I mix it all up. But well, it looks like you froze up again. So there you go. There you go. You're back. I was just gonna say that was a perfect segue. But I'll let you get back to your evening out there, and we'll talk soon, brother. Thank you so much, man.
Thanks so much, Mike. All the best, mate. Peace and love.
Peace. There he goes. Guys, make sure you check out the book and the latest issue of Ring Mag. Like I said, right there on page 62 is a piece that Luke did. Just kind of previewing the book, talking a little bit about Ike, and then gives you info about the book, of course. And there's a tiny little section from the book in there for you to check out. But once again, it's President of Pandemonium, the Mad World of Ike Ibeabuchi. And he is just one of those interesting characters that you just only seem to get in boxing, man. This is a crazy, crazy sport with colorful characters. And that's what we love about it. Sometimes tragically, but hopefully, Ike's, look, in boxing years, he's 48 years old, right? He's an old man, but in human years, he's still young. So maybe, his story is not completely finished yet. And maybe he can turn things around and, I don't know, maybe stay involved in boxing. You just never know. He could start training kids or something. there's things that he can do. I hope that he can figure things out. All right, let's go to the fight review. We got a bunch of stuff to talk about from last week. And then, of course, if you guys want to get on the line, boom, there's the numbers. All right. We'll start Friday, October 22nd in Montreal. Oscar Rivas makes history. Yay. I'm just joking. I mean, kind of makes history, technically. Unanimous decision win over Ryan Rozicki for the inaugural vacant WBC Bridgerweight title. Now, I don't know how to feel about this. I mean, do we really need another division in boxing? I don't think so. I understand that you look at the heavyweights now, and you could be a guy that weighs 201 pounds, and you're going to have to fight a guy like Tyson Fury, who's 270 pounds. And that is, on the surface, unfair. And I understand. But if you weigh 220 pounds, which is Bridgerweight, or I'm sorry, 221, if you're just over Bridgerweight, you still got to fight Tyson Fury, who's 270 pounds. It's still a 50-pound difference almost. So I don't know if this really alleviates any issues, when it comes to weight. I think that there are other much, much larger issues, like extreme weight cuts, guys blowing up in weight in between fights. I've been saying it for years. Someday, someone else is going to write a book or something about my idea of a 24-hour, 7 days a week, 365-day a year weight management program in boxing and make a ton of money on it. But that's what we need. That's truly what we need, is a year-round weight management program. That, to me, is more important than adding another division. Anyway, that's another rant for another day. Rivas beats Rozicki. So in the Ring Ratings Committee over the weekend, we talked about this. Do we start a Bridgerweight ratings now? And we decided not to, because who else do we rate? Who do we put there? Now, if a few fighters from cruiserweight and a few from heavyweight move up or down into Bridgerweight and kind of fill up the talent pool there, we might consider it. But right now, we're not even recognizing this title, and we're not even rating fighters at Bridgerweight. We don't include it on our site. So we removed Oscar Rivas from our heavyweight top 10. Personally, I don't think he belonged there anyway, Bridgerweight or not. But we look at Bridgerweight right now as heavyweight. We don't make a distinction. If you are 201 pounds or more, we consider you a heavyweight, regardless of what the WBC says. That's Ring's official stance right now. All right, Saturday, October 23rd, Top Rank on ESPN from State Farm Arena here in Atlanta, Georgia. Attendance was just over 5,000. This was disappointing, but it wasn't surprising, because the Dodgers pushed the Braves to a game 6. At one point, I think the Braves were up like 3-0. Maybe it was 3-1. I can't remember. The Dodgers won game 5 to bring the series back here to Atlanta. So when that happened, I was like, uh-oh, that is going to completely screw this card. The walk-up was dead. There was just no walk-up ticket sales, ticket activity. And so 5,000 attendance, yeah, that was underwhelming and disappointing, but props to Top Rank for not papering the place and saying, oh, we did 10,000, which is what a lot of other promoters do. So they announced it at just over 5,000. The fans that were there had a great time. And also, just before the main event, it was the NLCS Game 6 ended, and they announced on the speaker system there in State Farm Arena that the Braves had won. They're going to the World Series for the first time since the 1990s. And the place went nuts. And they were all doing the tomahawk chop, which is probably going to be outlawed in the next couple of years if the wokesters keep doing their thing. But everyone in attendance was getting down and just having fun, man, and doing the tomahawk chop. That was pretty cool. At least the Atlanta locals were doing it. Some of the out-of-towners were like, what the hell is going on in here? Anyway, the undercard was not very good in terms of the matchups. It was a lot of one-sided fights, but you got to see Xander Zayas continue to develop. He looked pretty good in his fight. He was the co-main. And the TV opener, Nico Ali Walsh, who I had a little fun with on Twitter. Not him personally, okay? So I want to explain this if any of Nico's people are watching. Nico Ali Walsh is Muhammad Ali's grandson. And if you watch the ESPN broadcast, you probably heard that so many times that you were hearing it in your sleep when you went to bed that night. They must have said it 14,000 times. It reminded me of when Tyson Fury was fighting Otto Wallin and Tom Schwartz. And the ESPN crew was so desperate to sell the fight, like you were watching this epic, epic fight, even though both of those were showcase matchups just to keep Fury busy, that they said the word lineal 14 billion times during the broadcast, right? That's what this reminded me of. Now, should they make a note that this is Muhammad Ali's grandson? Of course. And Evander Holyfield, one of his kids, fought on the ESPN Plus part of the undercard before the ESPN broadcast. So, yeah, you're going to mention that stuff. And actually, Evander Holyfield was there and got in the ring with his son, Evan, after his son scored a highlight reel knockout win that the fans loved, by the way, in Atlanta. Everyone just was screaming for that one. But, man, do you have to mention it that many times? So I tweeted a couple times, hey, just a reminder, guys, this guy's Muhammad Ali's grandson. And, you know, some people out there might be taking it as me making fun of Nico. Of course not. I'm not making fun of him. He's just doing this thing. I'm making fun of the ESPN people that mention it 8,000 times every 5 minutes during the broadcast. That's who I'm making fun of. So I want to make that clear and distinct. Okay, main event. Let's talk about Shakur Stevenson. TKO 10 win over Jamel Herring. Wins the WBO 130-pound title. I couldn't be more impressed with his performance. What an impressive display from Shakur Stevenson. Before the fight, he talked a lot of trash. He got way too personal and, you know, crossed the line a couple of times for the taste of a lot of people. And so he wore the black hat in this fight, and Jamel Herring wore the white hat. He was kind of seen as the good guy, right? So a lot of people were rooting for Jamel in that sense. So I guess Stevenson was trying to sell the fight by being the bad guy or whatever. I should note that after the fight, he immediately, embraced Jamel Herring and said, hey, man, all that is squashed. He said after the fight, I'm paraphrasing, look, we had to be that way when we were fighting. Now that the fight's over, we're friends. I love this guy. I love this man. That's literally, pretty much what he said. He apologized to Jennifer Herring, Jamel's wife. So it was good to see. But I got to give Jen credit because she tweeted a bunch of stuff, subsequent to the fight, a couple days after. Some of it was, I think, Sunday, some of it today, where she basically said, hey, great job, Shakur. Thanks for apologizing. But man, don't promote yourself that way. You don't have to. The skills speak for themselves. I tend to agree. There's something about Stevenson too, the baby face, the puppy dog eyes, and the kind of, I don't know how to describe his voice. It's not very alpha male sounding, right? It's not a very domineering kind of voice and presence he has. So the bad guy role, it just doesn't work for him the same way it would for somebody else. It ends up coming off just really douchey. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. It just doesn't work with him. It doesn't work with his fighting style, his aura, his presence, his look. It just doesn't work. I think he should market himself more like Floyd did in his early years, back when Floyd was Pretty Boy Floyd. Because there's hints, and I hate to do this, guys. I don't want to be that guy. I'm going to do it, okay? I got to do it a little bit here. There's elements of Floyd in this kid. There were elements I saw against Jamel Herring where I was like, man, that kind of looks like a young Floyd. Now, am I saying Shakur Stevenson is on the same stratosphere as Floyd Mayweather? No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying stylistically, he actually came forward in this fight. He was the aggressor from the onset. And we hadn't seen him fight like that. And it reminded me of Floyd at like 130, 135, where you'd actually see Floyd go forward sometimes. And he could stand in the pocket, slip punches, touch you, and fight on the inside, do things with his forearms, his elbows, those tricks that we talk about, right? That people were really mad at Tyson Fury for a couple weeks ago. Now they're giving Shakur Stevenson credit for now. It's kind of funny the way that works, but the reality is it's that classic American fighting style, right? There's a little B-hop in them. I never saw that before. I remember seeing Shakur's pro debut. I was ringside for his pro debut and a couple of his early fights, and he had what I called Bambi legs. Okay. I don't know if you guys might be too young to remember Bambi. When the little baby deer is walking on the ice and sliding all over the place, Bambi's legs weren't under him yet, right? That is how Shakur looked. He looked unsteady on his legs, and he looked like if you pushed him, he'd fall over, like a big gust of wind would knock him over. Man, in this fight, did he look strong. He looked really, really strong. He looked stronger and more physically imposing in the fight than Jamel Herring. And Jamel Herring was supposed to be the guy getting physical with Shakur. Now, to Jamel's credit, being the Marine he is, he did make some adjustments in the middle rounds. And with the 5th, 6th round, he did kind of make a stand, and he started mauling and grappling and getting inside and throwing some hard body shots. And Shakur admitted that some of those shots hurt. You know, he said that Jamel had some power with him. So Jamel made a good push, but Shakur was just too fast, man. Speed kills, but it's one thing if you're staying on the back foot with a jab and just flicking it, right? A guy could really put his hands up and march forward and eat a couple of those on his way in to get some work done. But when you're stepping into a jab, right, and you have the same speed, the same velocity, but you're stepping into it, you're putting your ass into those punches, you knock your opponent back, and you're still controlling distance and doing all the things you like to do on the back foot, but now you're stepping forward into those shots. And that's what Stevenson was doing from the opening bell, man. So I was really impressed. Now, am I ready to put him on the pound for pound list or anything? No. You know, beating Jamel Herring at this stage doesn't rate pound for pound list consideration. But I will say this. And, you know, actually, Stephen Breadman Edwards tweeted, I think it was last night, you know, and he used parentheses when he used the word they. But he said they spoke too soon about, you know, naming the Fab Four. And he was talking about the 4 young lightweights right now that everyone talks about: Teofimo Lopez, Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney, Gervonta Davis. But Breadman said, but what about Shakur Stevenson? Right? He's right around the same weight class, same age, and now he's got 2 world titles, legit world titles, in 2 different weight classes. Now, I had to respond to Breadman. I said, hey, for what it's worth, if in the February issue of Ring Magazine, there's an article written by myself, and I talk about the Fab Five. And I included Shakur. Way before everyone else wanted to, right? So I'm not saying I'm the only one, but again, we see this pattern happen occasionally, and I never get credit when I call stuff like this right. I only get shit on when I get something wrong. But I considered Stevenson part of that group. And hey, man, you could throw Chris Colbert in there too. You go a couple divisions down, Stephen Fulton. I mean, there's a crew of young American fighters around those weight classes, in and around featherweight, lightweight. They're really, really, there's a lot of talent. They just need to fight each other. But if you look at Shakur Stevenson right now, I think he's 17-0, 9 stoppages. That win over Jamel Herring was legit. That was a legit good win. Again, I'm not calling it a pound for pound level win or anything like that. I don't want to get too excited too fast, but I think he's accomplished more, Shakur Stevenson has, than Ryan Garcia, than Devin Haney. I think he's neck and neck with Gervonta Davis. I really, really do. The only one that is above the rest of the pack is Teofimo Lopez. He does have a pound for pound level win, right? Then if we're just looking at young fighters, not specifically American fighters, but other guys out there that have those pound for pound kind of wins around that weight class, Josh Taylor, right? At 140, you just go a few pounds north. He's got pound for pound level wins. So there's a couple guys around there that have, but if we're just looking at the Fab Five, those American fighters I'm talking about, I think that Teofimo Lopez has accomplished the most. I think right behind him is Shakur Stevenson, and Gervonta Davis sells more tickets. He's fought on pay-per-view, but his win over Leo Santa Cruz, I don't rate that any higher than Stevenson's win over Jamel Herring. I think Jamel Herring was in way better shape and fighting at his natural weight when he fought Stevenson. I can't say the same thing for Santa Cruz when he fought Tank. So again, I think those two are neck and neck right now. So don't sleep on Shakur Stevenson. I think that Top Rank did a good job picking him up and developing him the way they did. They got something there. I think that the kid is going to definitely go on to win titles in multiple weight classes and probably be on that pound for pound list one day. We don't know if he can catch a big shot, but when you've got the skill set that he has, I don't know if he's ever going to catch a big shot. I really don't. I don't know if he's ever going to get hit with something really hard and really flush on the chin that he doesn't see coming. I don't know. But unfortunately, we're probably not going to see him and Tank or Haney or any of these other fighters in the ring against each other anytime soon, which sucks because that's the last piece. That's the last piece. You guys know Ike and Barack on DAZN? Barack was there, sitting right next to me, ringside, Saturday night. And we were talking, and he was talking about how excited he is about this generation of fighters and how many great young American fighters we have. And he kept using the word stars, and there's so many. And I was like, yeah, there's talent, but these guys ain't stars because they're not fighting each other. And he's like, oh, they're too young. They're too young. I'm going, brother. When Sugar Ray Leonard and Thomas the Hitman Hearns fought each other, they were 23 and 25, I believe, right around that age. These guys are ready to fight each other now. And the reason why Leonard and Hearns and Duran and those guys became, specifically those two, though, the reason why they became so popular is because they started fighting each other young. And they took L's, but it was okay. They came back from those L's and they created storylines that sports fans could follow and wanted to follow. And that's missing in this generation right now. So it was cool to chop it up with him, man. We ended up talking all night about this kind of stuff and following each other on the IG. So I'll keep in touch with him. Maybe we get him on the show or something. But it's one thing, man. These guys got to fight each other. That's how you build them into stars. Okay, let's do the preview, shall we? All right. This Saturday, October 30th, Halloween weekend, we have a few different events. Let's start over in London, Matchroom on DAZN. Chantel Cameron fighting Mary McGee. Cameron is 14-0 out of the UK, has the WBC 140 women's title. Mary McGee is an American, has the IBF version of the title. They are going to unify titles. So this is a title unification in the women's 140-pound division. Here in the US of A, in Las Vegas at Mandalay Bay, TGB Promotions, PBC on Showtime, Jamal James going up against Brooklyn-based but Russian-born Radzhab Butaev. This is an interesting fight. James is 27-1, 6'2". Butaev is 13-0, 5'10". So there's definitely a size advantage, a height advantage for James. But Butaev has a lot more knockouts in a lot less fights. So he's seemingly the harder puncher. So you got puncher versus boxer in this matchup, although Butaev has shown he's got some boxing skills. So that's a fun main event. But also on this card, Jaron Boots Ennis going up against Thomas Delorme. Jaron Boots Ennis is a major talent, right? We're really excited to see where he's going to go. Thomas Delorme made to order for him right here. He is 1-3-1 in his last 5. He's almost as tall and is physically the same size as Ennis. Ennis is still going to be the bigger guy, definitely the stronger guy. But Delorme is his most experienced opponent to date. And he won't be – a lot of Ennis's opponents have been completely just oversized by him. So Delorme, almost going to look him eye to eye, but he's just so softened up that I think Ennis is going to destroy him. This is going to be another statement performance from Boots. And then in New York at MSG in the Hulu Theater. So this isn't the main MSG Garden. This is the theater at MSG, which I think seats like a few thousand. Top Rank on ESPN Plus. Jose Zepeda going up against Joshua Vargas. 10 rounds, junior welterweights. A battle of southpaws. Jose Zepeda, 32 years old, Mexican-American, going up against Vargas, who is a Puerto Rican native, but he lives and fights out of the Bronx. So even though these guys are American, it's the Mexican versus Puerto Rican matchup in terms of heritage. So that's going to be fun. Also on this card, another Puerto Rican fighter, Carlos Caraballo, 14-0 bantamweight, going up against Filipino fighter Jonas Sultan. So you got Puerto Rico versus the Philippines, and Sultan is this is a bantamweight fight, but he's fought most of his career at 115, moving up. I think he moved up in his last fight, but yeah, so he's recently moved up to bantamweight. So he is naturally the smaller guy here. Caraballo is going to have a size and power advantage in this fight. All right, guys, that is it for the preview. Let's jump over to the phones. I think we got a call here. Oh, we got Nacho on the line. Let's talk to Nacho. See what he's got to say. Nacho, what's going on, my man?
Hey, Mike, what's going on? Nothing much. I'm surprised I'm the first call. I thought you'd have a row of callers already lined up.
Nah, man, it's so random with the phones, man. So, again, sometimes I think I'm going to have 20 calls, I get one. Sometimes I think I'm going to have 3 calls, I get 20. So.
Oh, okay. All right. That's cool. Yeah, just kind of what I talked to you about on Twitter, watching that fight on Saturday night. I just think Herring and his team had the wrong game from the beginning. The only way you're going to beat Stevenson, is you're going to have to go after him. You're going to have to make it uncomfortable in there. You're going to have to fight somewhat rough, somewhat, sloppy, somewhat, dirty. You're going to have to hit him when he doesn't expect it. You're going to have to hit him to the body. You're going to have to really just attack him all night long in order to beat him. And Herring just unfortunately was not able to do that. He wasn't able to get inside very often, and when he did, he didn't throw enough to make it, to turn the tide of the fight. And Stevenson took advantage of that. He was able to, pepper him with shots, and Herring just had no head movement, no upper body movement. He was just getting tagged. And it's funny because some people complained that the stoppage was early. I had no problem with it. I had Stevenson way ahead by that time. So, and Herring isn't a knockout guy, so he wasn't going to knock out Stevenson. He would have had to have landed one of the luckiest shots ever in order to knock the kid out, and I don't think that was going to happen. So I don't mind the stoppage at all. I think they saved Herring from getting beat up for another 3 rounds, basically. So
I agree.
Maybe he comes back. Maybe he comes back later, sometime next year. Fights again. And then with Stevenson, after the fight was over, he was calling out Valdez as the guy he wants to, fight. I don't see that being. I don't think it should be an issue. But it'll be very interesting to see what Valdez and his team does at this point, because I wonder if they're just going to either try to say that he can't make 30 anymore and he's going to move up to 35, or if he's going to hang around and stay at 30 and maybe he needs another, tune-up before he takes on Stevenson. But I would definitely like to see Valdez take on Stevenson, just so that, we're not given this whole narrative of Valdez just keeps ducking Stevenson because he doesn't want to fight him. I hope that they do, take him on, and let's see what happens between the two. I would definitely like to see Chris Colbert fight Stevenson. I think that would be a really intriguing fight.
Yeah,
but I just don't see the PBC ever allowing Colbert to cross the street to fight Stevenson. So it's unfortunate, but I just think politics are never going to allow that fight to happen. And then with the other one, Zayas. I mean, I think the kid is getting better, Mike, but they're going to have to start, stepping up the competition a little bit. Because the guy he fought the other night hadn't fought in almost 2 years, and he was a journeyman type guy. I mean, Zayas isn't going to improve fighting a guy like that. They need to start gradually stepping the kid up and getting him some tougher competition. Fighting a journeyman like that wasn't going to do anything except be target practice for him, and that's what it was. Basically, he just teed off on the guy.
Yeah, there's nothing coming back.
Keep him off, and so that's not going to help Zayas. He needs a guy who's actually going to throw back and actually challenge him and make him work a little bit, like the same way Nicholson challenged Berlanga a couple fights ago. That's what he needs.
Yeah,
he needs a guy that's actually going to be there to fight. So it'll be interesting to see what they do next. But I would definitely like to see the kids step up at least a little bit and fight somewhat more of a live body. And then with the whole Ali thing, I agree, Mike. Like, I mean, I get Arum and Top Rank are really trying to sell this kid, but to me, he's kind of in that same boat as Chavez Jr. and Campbell Hatton. You're literally exploiting the father's legacy, or grandfather's legacy, in order to try to build the kid up. But this kid's nowhere near being ready for being on TV at this point. So, I mean, like, to me, they should keep this kid off TV and let him develop off TV if he's really serious about being a pro fighter. There's no reason to be putting him on after one professional fight. Like, he doesn't merit that kind of consideration. If anything, they should have had Evander Holyfield's son open up the telecast. I think that kid's a better fighter.
Yeah, because it was in Atlanta.
Yeah,
he's from Atlanta. He got a highlight reel knockout. The crowd went nuts, and then Evander got up in the ring afterwards. So it would have just worked so much better for the ESPN broadcast. I'm with you, man, 100%.
Yeah. So, but I have a feeling that as time goes on, they're going to keep pushing Nico Ali on us. So,
oh yeah,
I guess all I can say is just get ready
I know
for that one. And then as far as the cards this weekend, I think the Vargas Zepeda fight should be a good one. It is interesting though that Top Rank is kind of putting these younger prospects of theirs in there against these grizzled vets at 140, like a Zepeda. I'm not sure that this Vargas kid is ready for that big of a step up, but we'll see. We'll see how he does Saturday night. But it's definitely an intriguing fight. I want to see how he looks against a guy like Zepeda, who isn't that far away from being a world title challenger again. So
right.
It's definitely an interesting fight. And then the other one with the Showtime card, I like Jamal James, but it almost feels like, and I don't know, maybe this is just me, Mike, it almost feels like the PBC is like dragging their feet with him in order to get him to eventually have to move up to 154 pounds and then fight somebody in that division, because it seems like they are just not willing to put him in there against a legitimate top guy at 47 that the PBC has. Like, it's really strange. They just keep dragging their feet with the guy. And I think he deserves a shot at one of the names, but they just keep giving him these guys who you're kind of waiting, like, okay, like another, somewhat of a stay busy fight. I mean, Butayev is a decent fighter, but I think Jamal James is on the level where he should be fighting guys like Thurman, Porter, Garcia, someone of that
ilk.
Thurman
would be fun. Yeah.
Yeah. I think he's earned that right to get to that type of opponent, and it's just really strange how Heyman and the PBC just keep giving this guy like these no names to have to keep fighting. And at some point, I think he's just gonna outgrow 47, and he's not gonna be able to make 47, and he's gonna have to go up to 54. So it's kind of disappointing that they keep doing that. But I like watching the kid fight; he's entertaining, so I don't mind seeing him in there again. And then with Boots, I think Boots is going to win this fight against Delorme, but I just want to see how much resistance Delorme is going to put up. I mean, he gave James a hell of a fight the last time they were in against each other. So I'm hoping he definitely tests Boots, because I think that's the biggest question mark with Boots, is that it seems like he's dominated everybody in front of him, which has been kind of a little bit to his detriment. I actually want to see somebody who's not going to fold as soon as he starts hitting them, and he's going to take them out right away. I hope Delorme is that guy to kind of answer those questions so we can see how good Boots really is, because everybody keeps saying that he would beat Virgil Ortiz, but to me, Virgil Ortiz has fought the better opposition right now, and I'd like to see Boots at least fight the same level of opposition before we start making any predictions on how a fight between those two would go. So, but yeah, That's pretty much it, Mike. I'll just listen to the rest of the show.
Okay, great, man. Good stuff, Nacho.
All right.
As always.
Thanks. All right.
Yeah, and I agree. I think Delorme is going to give Boots something to think about, but the difference between Boots and James is Ennis is a lot more explosive, heavier puncher, more physical, more of a physical fighter. And I think that Delorme is going to feel those punches early on. So, I think with James, he thought he could maybe step forward. And then when he fought Stanionis, I don't know if Stanionis is a really, really hard puncher either. So I just think at least Stanionis is maybe a thudding kind of puncher, but Ennis is an explosive puncher. And I think that he's going to catch Delorme with shots that snap his head back and stuff. And he's going to be hesitant to just go in there and just work. All right, one more call, guys. Let's see. 513, you're on the show. What's up?
Hey, Mike. I was sitting there. I sent that super chat to you about the fight being on so late. I felt like that should have been on Friday. Might ended up selling. I don't know what the World Series situation is, but I just, boxing got real slow in the summertime, and then it decides to heat up right as this is the busiest 2-3 weeks in the entire American sports schedule. You got the NBA and NHL are kicking off. You got the World Series and you got football all going on at the same time. Because I've seen people saying they could have put that on ESPN earlier. Well, they really couldn't have because of the primetime college football games that they have contracts to show. So I don't know how they get it on earlier besides going to Friday night instead of Saturday.
Well, that's the problem when you're on ESPN. Is there's a corporate structure there that you got to work with. It to me, there was no coincidence that a few minutes after the baseball game ended, the main event took place. So, to me, that was very deliberate. Now, did anyone at Top Rank tell me that's what they were doing? They said they were waiting for a college football game to end, but I'm thinking in my mind,
no, they were waiting for the college football game to end because I was watching it on TV and we were waiting for it. I was watching it with my dad and we were waiting for it to come on. So we turned on the Alabama-Tennessee game and it ran over its allotted time. So that's what they were waiting for.
So, okay, well,
it started right
they were
away.
going up against that, and then they were going up against the baseball game. And I know the baseball game had to hurt them with ratings to a certain extent. But then also in the market here in Atlanta, it definitely affected the crowd. The ticket sales were not where they wanted them to be. But I'm with you, man. This is something I've talked about. Look, when I lived in LA, it really wasn't a big deal because main events would start at midnight on the East Coast. It's 9 o'clock in LA. So it really didn't matter even if it was like a Tuesday night card or something, 9 o'clock is good. But when you're on the East Coast, if you're in the Midwest or the East Coast, the Southeast, these late shows, it sucks, man. And for me, working them, I remember I covered a Klitschko fight once in New York. I didn't get back to my hotel till 4 a.m. because we had to wait for Klitschko to do VADA testing after the fight. So we were waiting on them to, VADA to finish with him before we could interview him. So there was all kinds of stuff, and then we had to wait for international media. And I didn't get back to my hotel till 4. That's just too damn late. So I'm with you that they could, they could really change these things. That's one advantage to having streaming, is you can just go live when you want.
Yeah, I agree. And, also if you're going to have the ESPN deal, I mean, there's not a lot of competition Friday night sports wise. Thursday night football, I believe college football games are very seldomly take place on Friday night. So I just feel like if boxing just kind of got together and be like, we'll put more events on Friday night because there's less competition sports wise, especially when it gets real busy like it is in the American sports schedule. Because it's as I said, it's as you're a sports fan all around, kind of like I am watching the other sports leagues. everything's hopping right now. The baseball's still going on, NHL, NBA starting up, football going on.
Right.
It's, you turn your TV on, there's sports on all the time for about a 2 to 3 week period in our schedule.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I love Friday night fights. They work great. They're a great kickoff to the weekend. If you're a guy that works Monday through Friday, you get home from work Friday, you crack a beer, you watch the fights. It kind of kicks your weekend off. I love Friday night fights. And for what it's worth, I wouldn't mind seeing Tuesday night, Wednesday night fights. I mean, the only thing you're going to go up against occasionally is an NBA game, NHL game, something like that, maybe a baseball game. But a lot of those ratings are more regionally based. NFL, you do not want to go up against Monday Night Football, Thursday Night Football, a big college football game. That kind of stuff hurts. But going up against, the NBA and stuff, you'll be fine. So, yeah, I'm with you, Andrew. They really should, man.
Now, I do want to just touch on Shakur Stevenson's performance a little bit, because that was really impressive, because Jamel's a good fighter, and that was a dominant performance he put on. And I've been trying to think of somebody who could actually beat him at 130 pounds, and there's only two guys that come to mind. Both of them aren't at the weight right now. One would be Emmanuel Navarrete moving up, or Vasily Lomachenko moving down. And I'm going to say it. I think the fight for Shakur Stevenson, because I think Valdez Navarrete, I think that fight's going to happen before they fight, because that's just a really entertaining fight. If Loma can't get Teofimo Lopez again, I don't see why he can't go down and challenge for that 130-pound crown against Shakur Stevenson, because that would be a great fight against two boxing technicians.
That's a great point. Yeah, I'm with you. I think that would be a lot of fun. It's doable, especially if Valdez does fight Navarrete, which is very, very possible. So, yeah, I'm with you,
And
Andrew.
then you can have those winners of those two fights face each other.
Absolutely.
Which would be even better. You do a little 4-fighter tournament. But those are really the only two guys. Valdez struggled with Conceição, and Shakur's more skilled than Conceição, especially, moving backwards using the ring, just in terms of the technique standpoint. So I don't think Valdez even really stands a chance against Shakur. I'm not saying it's a question. Like, if that fight was made, I'm not saying I wouldn't be excited for it, but It's not really, after watching that, it's not really a question I need answered immediately.
Right. Yeah, I'm with you, man. I'm with you.
I'll hop off. I'll let you get to any other callers and the rest of the show. So,
all right, Andrew. Thanks a lot, man. Have a good one.
All right, you as well.
Got a question here from Papa Chubby. He says, Mike, did any listeners pop up and meet you for a beer? Yeah, I met a couple of you guys at the fights, and just came up and said hi for a couple minutes. There was a few of you guys that made the trip to Atlanta. Tried to do a meetup before the fight with a couple media folks, and we ended up doing that. But the rooftop bar I wanted to meet at was closed for a private event. Someone was doing a party, and they rented out the entire damn place. So we didn't get to take a cool rooftop selfie, which is what I really wanted. But I met with a few guys at the bar downstairs. Just had one drink, and then we walked over to the arena. So that was it. It was a quiet night. It wasn't a party night or anything like that. I didn't go out afterwards, do anything. I pretty much after that went straight home and went to bed. I was tired. Super chat pledge from my friend CJ Duncan. Thank you so much, CJ. He says, Leonard Ellerby on Twitter trolling Top Rank and Stevenson about low ticket sales, acting like we don't see they're going on 12/5 on pay-per-view, which is a Sunday, because it's college playoff on 12/4. I hear you, man. But for the, I don't blame PBC for making that move. That's cool if that's what they want to do. And you can see, hey, Sunday boxing, maybe there's room for it. You're going up against the NFL. That's tough. But I guess, they'd rather go up against the NFL than against the college playoff. But why does LRB always have to make it about ticket sales? You got one fighter legitimately that sells tickets pretty good in the lower divisions. That's Gervonta Davis. Cool. He isn't fucking fighting anybody. a few people, a very small niche audience of people cares about ticket sales. And I know you're trying to pander to them because they're gullible and they're not very smart. But most fight fans care more about who's fighting the best. Therefore, right now, in the eyes of most fight fans, Shakur Stevenson rates higher than Gervonta Davis. I think that more fans probably respect what Stevenson has done so far than what Tank is doing, fighting Raleigh Romero and charging a premium for it. You know, people got to watch this fight between Stevenson and Herring, which was a real passing of the torch, generational kind of fight, which is what you are supposed to get in boxing, right? And they got to watch it for free. Now, yeah, they had to wait till midnight. I get it. There was only 5,000 people in the crowd. I get it. But you're going to have to pay $80 if you want to watch Gervonta Davis knock out a C-level journeyman type of fighter. I wouldn't even call him a club fighter in Raleigh Romero. This is a guy who's been protected, and he still had to rob someone to keep his undefeated record last year. So, look, man, it is what it is, but why you got to go on there and hate on a young fighter who just put on the performance of his career just because he's not selling as much tickets as Gervonta Davis? Who gives a shit? He just fought somebody better than anyone Davis has beat. Facts. All right, back to the phones. Let's go to Keith. 631. You're on the show. What's up, Keith?
What up, Mike? How are you?
Good, man.
Yeah, just to kind of follow up to coming from the East Coast, I don't miss staying up till 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning sometimes to watch the entire card. It's a luxury to, I guess, have it out here. And the fights are done at 10 o'clock and the night's relatively young. You can do something. So it's really nice. I was actually very impressed with Stevenson. It was kind of like, also I like too, is there was a kind of like a duality or a symbolism sense where the passing of the torch, you had Herring come out, walk out, to Jadakiss, and then you had Stevenson walk out to that guy from Migos. It was just a symbolism in the change of generation, and
yeah,
it was almost kind of epic with Herring walking out to Jadakiss. As a New Yorker myself, it was actually pretty cool to see. Herring's from Long Island too. I was impressed with Shakur. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not a big fan of him. I think he's a punk, to be honest with you. Just because of his out of the ring antics. He's also a young kid, but very impressed with him. He kind of a little bit reminded me of Mayweather to an extent. Not Pretty Boy Floyd, I guess, money per se, where he's a little bit more judicious in his actions as far as his punchline selection. Very accurate, and he seemed to act like the bigger man in the fight. I don't see Valdez beating him. I see Valdez maybe keeping competitive. Valdez can keep up a good jab, but I think Stevenson right now is probably the man at 130 unless he fights Colbert and something happens. But yeah, to kind of touch base on what everyone else said too. I think Stevenson's kind of probably be a problem at anyone at 130 pounds until he goes up to 135 and he fights like guys like his Pio still there or Garcia or Haney who all might move up to 142. So we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I agree, man. Look, right now at 130, it's between Stevenson and Valdez, and I would favor Stevenson to win that fight. I just would.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that Valdez's people are avoiding Stevenson, or it just has been the weight in the past?
I don't think they were, but I think they will now. I think that they're going to go a different direction. Look, Navarrete is a tough fight, but that's a more winnable fight for Valdez. And maybe build the Stevenson fight a little bit more. But, look, if you were Valdez and you had a choice and you had equal money to fight Navarrete or Stevenson, you'd probably want to fight Navarrete first,
Yeah, from a business perspective, 100%. Yeah. I'd fight Navarrete first, especially since he's coming up in weight, and Valdez can kind of take advantage of his wild style as well too. And that'll be if they sell that, if they do that here in Arizona, it'll sell out easily just because of excellent fans here. But I mean, Andrew said that Navarrete could give Stevenson problems, which could make sense because a guy like Stevenson, he's more of a boxer base. So someone who's unorthodox who comes from different angles could give him problems. But I think ultimately, I think he would probably stifle Navarrete's attacks.
Agreed.
I really only think the person that can beat him down at 130 is probably Lomachenko, because it could almost kind of not settle the debate, but people say what would happen if Floyd and Loma fought 130 pounds. Stevenson and Floyd have similar. They have the American style. I think Lomachenko could give him a lot of problems, obviously, just because of his angles. If the Lomachenko shows up that just beat Nakatani or even before at 130 pounds, I think he could pose a lot of problems for Stevenson. But again, I don't know if Bob Arum matches them up, just because Loma still has some fight left in him, and Stevenson's a rising star. So I don't think he's gonna. I don't think he'll do that, but you never know.
Yeah, I doubt it. I highly doubt it, because I think that Top Rank doesn't want him to lose, which sucks. But I mean, who is it going to fight? Who's it going to fight that we care about? I don't know. Maybe Top Rank really, shells out the money to get him to fight Valdez. That would be a number 1 versus number 2. That would be for the Ring Magazine championship, to be for the quote unquote lineal championship. So it would be a good fight for Shakur. But I think a fight between him and Lomachenko is commercially bigger. They could put that in New York. Remember, Stevenson's from Newark. And then with all the Ukrainians and Russians up there in New York, that would be a big fight. It really would.
Yeah, that'll be a very big fight, actually, when you think about it. That'll be very big. And then you have Chris Colbert. I think Chris Colbert would probably try and push for that fight to happen, but I don't think that happens. He's got, the WBA regular title at 130, or is it the super now?
It's one of the PBC titles with the WBA. But yeah, I don't think the PBC will allow that. I just don't see it happening.
We're in bed with Al.
yes. We're in bed with Al.
Another thing too, just to kind of piggyback what everyone was saying, I think that, boxing will probably be better on the Friday night and sometime during the week too as well, just because it's going up against other sports and promoters have their heads up their asses, and the sport itself cannibalizes itself by putting on multiple cards. So a Friday night on a busy weekend is probably a good idea. And the other thing too, to kind of going back to the Fury Wilder fight, Fury looked sloppy, fat. I think he was relatively out of shape. But from what I've seen, I haven't seen. I mean, we saw Usyk get, I guess, maybe buzzed or hurt by Joshua. Honestly, I would say Fury is probably one of the best recuperative powers in the whole goddamn sport, because he got nailed by Wilder, knocked down by Wilder, knocked 4 times.
Yeah,
I think. And he just recovered so quickly. You can't teach that. It's crazy. I don't understand that.
Natural born fighter, man.
Yeah. All right, Mike. Well, thanks for taking my call. Appreciate it. And then, I'll listen to the rest of the call. On
All right. Thanks a lot, Keith. Have a good one, man. All right, guys. We're going to do one more from the UK, and then we're going to wrap it up. Let's go over to 780. You're on the show. What's going on?
Hi, Mike. Chris Bergen. How you doing?
Chris. Hey, man. I haven't heard from you in a while. How you doing?
Yeah, it's been a while, man. Yeah, I'm doing really good. I've just been doing a lot of overtime lately at work. Finally got Monday off, so
nice.
Good to listen to the show live, and I thought I'd call in.
Nice.
Yeah, so I did have a lot of. I wrote a lot of notes down this lunchtime to ring up. I wrote a lot about the Stevenson Herring fight, but I think everyone's pretty much covered that. What I would say is, I've much respect for both guys.
Mm-hmm.
Stevenson for, pretty much a shutout display, weren't it, from him? Very dominant performance. And Herring, people talk about Wilder with a lot of heart. I thought Herring showed a lot of heart as well in that fight. And, the guy is just a top pro and, truly great guy in the sport. We need more people like Jamel Herring, I think, in the sport.
Agreed. In the world.
And, and his wife as well. Everyone needs a wife like his wife, standing behind the man like she does.
Yep, I completely agree. That's something that Jamel's talked about, I feel that way about my wife. My wife has got my back no matter what, and supports me, and you got to have that. It really changes your life, fellas. When you meet one like that, keep her happy. Just do what you got to do to keep her happy, because it changes your life.
Yeah, absolutely, man. But I saw Herring put a post up, and it was a post of him and his daughter, and
Yep.
it made me think maybe he should probably hang him up now. He's made a lot of money, and he's 35. It must be hard to keep that weight. Maybe time to hang him up, but I don't know. Maybe he wants to go on, thinks he's got more in the tank. I don't know. What do you think?
I think he'll want to do one more. I think him and his family will want to do one more. Maybe they could do it in Long Island or something up in the New York area. So it's, quote unquote, a homecoming, and get in there against the right opponent to go out on the W. But, I talked to Jamel last week, and I texted him for like the last week or so, and we finally talked in person last week. And his energy seemed different for this fight. I have to admit, I didn't want to say anything before the fight, but his energy did feel different. So I do think he's considering it. I know his wife would love if he hung him up. So I think maybe one more.
Yeah. Okay. Next one. So you were talking about someone that we talked about a lot, Ali Walsh. And I was thinking, there's a lot of fighters out there at the minute, whose, either parents or grandparents have got big names. So you've got, Eubank Jr., Conor Benn, Campbell Hatton, Tim Tszyu, Holyfield. There's quite a lot of them out there. So my question to you is, who do you think is the one to look out for out of those fighters? The one for me that stands out is Tim Tszyu.
Mm-hmm.
I think the guy has gone from a contender to challenger now, and I think you'll see in the next 12 months. I think he'll probably be a world champion, or at least fighting for the world title. I think.
Yeah, I think Tszyu and Ben are the two I'm most interested in. But what I just noticed, Chris, is you named all these sons that are fighting, and only one is American, and that's Evan Holyfield. A lot of fighters' sons here go into basketball, go into baseball. I don't know. That just stood out to me. It's interesting, because I know a lot of fighters' kids that are college athletes right now. They're playing college football, college baseball, track, whatever it is, but they're not boxing. Interesting. Anyway, it's Ben and Tszyu for me are the two I'm most interested in.
Yeah, well, I've seen Tszyu is fighting the Takeshi Inoue next.
Yes.
I've no idea if he's any relation to Naoya Inoue or not, but
not that I know of.
Oh yeah, he's fighting him next. No. And Conor Benn, I would say Conor Benn is probably one of the most improved fighters in world football. I never said world boxing at the moment.
Yeah, I agree.
I saw him early on in his career. He looked terrible.
Yep.
I saw him against a French guy. I can't remember the guy's name, but guy was about 6-4, and he got dropped. I think it was two times in the first round. Conor Benn nearly got stopped. Ended up winning the fight. Ended up stopping the guy, and then he ended up beating him again in the rematch convincingly.
Okay.
But yeah, I said I hold my hands up. I said on Twitter, this guy Conor Benn's got nothing about him. He won't be anything special. But I think he's really improved a lot. I think he looks like a good fighter these days, and he's shown that in his last 3 wins. He's had 3 solid wins in a row now.
He does.
And I think put him in with Evanesian. I think that'd be a good fight.
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
That'd be a good fight next.
Who has he fought this year? Because he fought 2 good fights this year. I know, was it Granados?
Samuel Vargas.
Yeah, Granados and Vargas.
Granados and Samuel Vargas, yeah.
And the Vargas fight...
He stopped Vargas in 1 round.
Right. Which, that's exciting. But the Granados fight I thought was great because that got him rounds against a really experienced guy. So, maybe an Evanesian would be another fight like that, where he goes the 10-round distance or whatever it is, but he gets those rounds in That's what's going to serve him well. And that's the one thing Zoo isn't getting as much right now. You know, young guys need those rounds, man.
Yeah. I mean, for anyone that's not seen it, I'd check out, I think it was an IFL video, and it was after the Conor Benn fight with Granados, and they're interviewing Conor Benn afterwards, and then Granados comes in, and Conor Benn actually speaks fluent Spanish, and he starts having a go at Granados in Spanish.
That's
it's
awesome.
a really fun interview. They bring them both in, and they're both going at each other in interview. It's a really, really good interview for anyone that wants to watch it.
You said it's IFL?
I think it was IFL. I think it was Kugan Cassius, yeah.
Okay.
But
I'll
if
check
anyone
that
wants
out.
to look it up, it's really fun. But yeah, Conor Benn, I think he lived in Spain for quite a while. So yeah, he speaks fluent Spanish, and
Cool.
it's quite funny to see him.
That.
Yeah. So another thing I want to speak to you about was the Dillian White pulling out of the Otto Wallin fight, which was meant to be this weekend, I think. Yeah, I think it's this weekend.
Yeah.
It looks a bit iffy, I think.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people think that, you know, and I don't blame him, because, you know, they're saying if he pulls out this fight, he's got Tyson Fury next for the title. And he's been number one for, is it 4 years now?
It's something like that. Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, and the last time he put the chance on the line was against Povetkin, and he got beat. He got knocked out. I mean, he did avenge that loss,
right.
But does he really want to? Does he really want to put that on the line again against a 6'4" southpaw, tricky customer? You know, who's only been beat by Tyson Fury. I don't know.
Yeah, it does look suspicious. It would not surprise me at all if we see White and Fury fight early next year. I would love to see that fight. I think it'd be really entertaining. I think they could do that here in America. It'd still be good, but you could do it in the UK as well. But yeah, I mean, do I believe that there's a shoulder injury? I don't know. I'm 50-50 on it, man.
Yeah, I'm the same as you. But I don't blame him, though.
I don't
really
either.
don't blame him after waiting 4 years.
Yeah.
After waiting 4 years, man, I mean, that's just crazy. But, I mean, there's a lot of good fights still available at heavyweight. Even, you know, people are saying Wilder should retire, which, you know, depends on how much he's, you know, pain and injuries he suffered at the hands of those last two fights with Fury. But, I mean, if he's okay to fight, there's some big fights out there for Wilder. You know, he could fight Dillian White. You know, he could fight Anthony Joshua, Joseph Parker, Usyk. There's lots of fights out there. You know, I think heavyweight's in a good place at the moment.
As long as they fight each other, the division's great right now. Are these, you know, the best fighters ever or anything? No, but there's a lot of interesting fights that can be made. I mean, Wilder against White, against Ruiz, against Parker. I'd watch any of those.
Yeah.
You know, I hope they can all happen. So over the next 2 or 3 years, if we got a bunch of those kind of fights, it'd be great for boxing, but you know, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, well, yeah, most of them will happen, but
yeah,
I mean, we've got Chisora versus Parker that's coming up in Manchester.
That's a fun fight, man.
Tickets for that one.
Yeah, see, there's a lot of like snobs that are like, "Oh, I don't want to see that fight. They're not elite," and that's a good matchup. Two guys that on any given night can get it done with big punches. I want to see that fight. That's heavyweight boxing right there. That's the kind of heavyweight boxing I want to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, you know, people like us, you know, we just want to watch boxing anyway. So
yeah, that's a good point.
I watched the Mikey Garcia card last week, and you know, on paper it looked terrible, but I watched it and really enjoyed it. I thought the whole card was a really good watch.
Yeah, the fights ended up being fun,
action packed. Yeah, it was really fun, and I thought, you know, on DAZN, it was you know, for your subscription money, I'm paying £1.99 at the minute. It's going up to £7.99, but for £1.99, I was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, that's a hell of a deal, man. That's a hell of a deal.
Yeah. Plus, it was funny to see Mikey Garcia lose as well. It was quite funny, so.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were like, okay, you know, after just all the stunts he's pulled, I think people, it's not that people wanted to see him lose or, that they were rooting for a guy to lose, but it was just, he kind of got his comeuppance a little bit and people enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, with COVID and people taking long layoffs and then not taking people seriously, that's what happens. You've seen it with plenty of times recently. It's happened a lot. So that's a warning for other fighters. Last question I've got is, so obviously, I spoke to you over Messenger. Obviously, well done with your victory in your fight.
Thank you.
Will you be fighting again? That's what I want to know.
I was actually supposed to fight November 20th, but the gym that I train at, the part of the roof caved in, so the city condemned the building.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. So they got to fix it. I actually saw my coach at the fights this weekend, was talking to him about it. He doesn't know when it's going to get fixed. So I want to, and the plan now is to do it early next year. It's either going to be March or May, depending on when the gym can get fixed, because the only other gyms that are true boxing gyms are kind of far from me. This one that I train at, it's like 4 miles away. The other gyms in this part of town are MMA gyms, and they have a cage, but not a ring. I want to be in a ring where I can spar and stuff. So
yeah,
I want to do another one for sure. And I was, we had everything set up with the promoter. It was actually going to be a pro fight. And this happened.
Oh,
so
really?
Yeah, man, it's just always one thing after another. So we'll see what we can do. But yeah, the plan is I'd like to do one in the first half of next year.
Yeah, that'd be awesome, man.
Yeah,
that'd be awesome. Yeah, you should definitely stick with it, because obviously, you look good in that last fight. So
thanks,
and obviously,
man.
we all want to see it again. So
Appreciate it.
And and I thought the interview you did before with Luke was really good, by the way.
With who? Oh, with Luke. With Luke. Oh, yeah. Man, Luke's a cool guy. And he was he just the subject matter of Ike Ibeabuchi, it's just, you could talk for hours about a character like that,
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was right. You need to come to the UK as well.
It's absolutely on the bucket list. Yeah, I can't wait to get over there and see you guys. I'm looking forward to it.
Definitely, man. Definitely, man. All right, I'll let you go anyway. Get to the next call or whatever. All right, cheers,
all right,
bro.
man. Have a good night.
All right, and yourself. Take care.
You too.
Bye.
There he goes. All right, guys, we're gonna wrap it up right now. Boom. There's the outro music. Well, there we go. We got a few calls on the back end of the show. Good stuff as always, everybody. And we'll do a show, I guess Friday. I'm going to be traveling for work, but I'll try to do a show Friday wrap up on my channel. Or else we'll be back here next Monday on Ring for TNC. All right, guys, have a great week. I'll see you at the fights. Peace.